Welcome back, everybody, to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's course, we continue our preparation for the Linux Foundation Certified System Administrator exam. Working with our KVM system, in our last video, we took a look at the virtual manager and how we could work with the state of our virtual machine, starting, stopping, and changing the state of our virtual machine. We also looked at how we would access the VM console just using the GUI, and then finally how to configure that system or our virtual machine to boot with our system. In other words, when our system reboots, we want our virtual machine to restart. Those things are pretty straightforward using the GUI. However, you do not have to use the GUI in order to manage your virtual machines, set it to restart, or even connect to the console. So we're going to use something called the virtual shell. And the virtual shell is just you'll often hear it referred to as VIRSH or VIRSH. So if we just do a VIRSH, it'll tell you the Virtualization Interactive Terminal. So if we want help with the commands, we can hit help, and it tells us all the things that we can do with our virtual shell. You can actually manage your entire environment, including using it to spin up new virtual machines completely from this shell. But we're just going to work with the state and take a look at some things. So when we looked at our virtualization manager, so our virtualization manager, when we start it up, is Virt Manager. So let's go ahead and have that started up, and we see that we have a VM called Ubuntu Trusty Tar. Now I can start that. It's currently shut off. Now I can start that, however, by doing a VIRSH start Ubuntu Trusty Tar. And now, if I do a VIRSH list, I should see that, again, Ubuntu Trusty Tar has started running. Now, that doesn't mean that it's completely booted, but it does mean that it's currently running. Now, what I can do is now I can connect to the console by using the virtual viewer. So Virt Viewer, and then the guest operating system, which is Ubuntu Trusty Tar. And you have to spell it correctly or you'll get an error. So now you'll see that we are connected to the same console that we were when we had started the virtual manager. And in fact, this console does not differ in any way, shape, or form from the virtual console that we had looked at. Now, it's not the full virtual manager. It's just the VM console. Now, just because I shut this down, I'm just closing the session or the connection to my virtual machine. And if I rerun the list command, you'll see that the virtual machine is still running. Now, I can reboot this by using the virtual shell and doing reboot, and then, of course, the name of the virtual machine. But in this case, let's go ahead and do a shutdown, and we'll say Ubuntu Trusty Tar. And again, make sure you spell it correctly. So it's being shut down. So if we rerun the list command, it'll continue to show that it is shutting down until the shutdown has completed. Now, if I try to connect to it, it's connected to the shell here, and eventually it will time out and shut down, but we'll go ahead and let it finish shutting down. And we'll see that it's now having been shut down. And if we run the virtual list, we'll see that nothing is currently running. Now, finally, I can completely remove the virtual machine simply by doing a destroy. So if I were to do a virtual shell destroy Ubuntu Trusty Tar and hit enter at this point, it would actually destroy the guest operating system. Since we're not done with the course yet, I don't want to do that, but you can destroy it. And these are just some of the commands that you can use in VIRSH in order to work with the state of your system. Now, finally, what we want to take a look at is, in order to start our virtual machine, all we want to do is make sure that it auto starts. And we can do that as well by doing a vir sh auto start and Ubuntu trusty tar. And then it will tell me that it's marked as auto started. And that simply means that if I run the sudo virt manager and I come over here and select my virtual machine and go to open, bring up my information or my settings, go to my boot options, you'll see that starting the virtual machine on host boot up has now been selected for us. So it's a way of working at the command line simply to interact with our virtual machine instance exactly the same way as I would with the GUI. But the advantage here is not only can it be scripted, but it can be added to startup. Any number of things can be added as part of the process of managing the state of your virtual machine. You can run a KVM environment in a completely headless mode because we have command line access to absolutely everything that the virtual manager gives us, including all the settings, adding additional hardware, etc., etc. Right now, we're just talking about how to start and stop and destroy our virtual machine, get to the console, set it for auto start. But as we saw when we started the virtual shell, and we looked at the help command, all of those parameters can be run as part of that virtual shell, completely headless to run and manage all of our virtual machines from within our KVM hypervisor at a guest level. So for the basics of command line access, working with the state of our operating system, our guest operating system, accessing the virtual console, and then setting that virtual machine to auto start on boot, that's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.